The atomic bombs left a lasting, devastating impact on Hiroshima and Nagasaki, and its atrocities should always be remembered, such as the blast flattening the land, the fire burning anything in its path, and the radiation slowly killing the people, as well as the families being permanently separated, all of which serve as examples of why the atomic bomb should never be used again. The atomic bomb caused mass destruction in the cities of Hiroshima and Nagasaki, completely leveling much, if not all, of their infrastructure. It killed hundreds of thousands of people instantly and left millions more suffering from injuries, burns, and long term health effects. But the devastation did not stop with the initial blast. Many who survived would later perish due to radiation exposure, starvation, and disease. Even today, the impact of these bombs linger as a permanent scar in history and reminds us of the horrors of nuclear warfare. The damage to Hiroshima and Nagasaki was unprecedented. In Hiroshima, brick buildings 4,400 feet away from the epicenter were completely obliterated, while in Nagasaki, similar structures were completely destroyed 5,300 feet away. These brick buildings were some of the strongest buildings in the cities, yet they crumbled under the force of the blast. Other structures, such as the steel frame buildings, did not collapse but were severely bent and had their windows and panels blown in. Bridges were also heavily damaged. Many collapsed into the rivers, while stronger steel-plated bridges buckled under pressure. With bridges destroyed, escape and rescue efforts became nearly impossible, leaving survivors trapped in the apocalyptic wasteland. Even underground fallout shelters built to protect people from the bombings had their roofs collapsed, although those located more than 0.5 miles from the blast remained mostly intact. The physical pain for people was unimaginable. Nearly 50% of the deaths in both cities were caused by burns alone. Those who survived the initial explosion were left with severe flash burns, their skin charred and peeling. Many developed massive blisters which became infected in the unsanitary conditions, leading to even more suffering and death. The sheer force of the explosion even tore off flesh from their bones. Shards of glass, concrete, and wood flew through the air, piercing bodies and embedding deep into flesh, further worsening the struggle for survival. When these people had the blast, much of their clothing got torn or burnt, so many had no shoes and were forced to walk on the sharp glass and rough concrete to get to safety. In total, 210,000 people are officially recognized as having died as a result of the atomic bombings, though the true number may be even higher. Many people that lived through the attack continue to tell their stories so we can hear it, one of which is Yoshito Matsushige. Yoshito Matsushige was a photographer who survived the Hiroshima bombing. Describing the horrors of what he saw, he witnessed schoolgirls who were told to get outside before the blast, and so they were hit head on and were covered in burns and blisters. They had so many open wounds and were barely even able to stand. The devastation was so overwhelming that he could barely bring himself to take photos. Even other photographers they knew refused to capture the destruction, unable to react to the world around them. While Yoshito wasn't proud of taking the photos, he still did to capture the atrocities of that day. Another witness to the horrors was Yoshitaka Kawamoto. Yoshitaka Kawamoto, a student at the time, was in school when the bomb hit. In an instant, he found himself on the ground, surrounded by destruction. His school was half destroyed and on fire. He had to hold his friend whose skull was cracked open and leave him there. As he fled, he had to step over dead bodies and people begging for help. He regretted when he had to step on those people to keep walking. When he finally reached the Waterford River, he had to push aside floating corpses just to drink. These stories are only a glimpse into the horrors experienced by children and civilians on that day. The heat from the explosion scorched the land in Nagasaki, burning vegetation up to 8,000 feet from the epicenter. The wooden houses, trees, and even telephone poles were completely incinerated. A massive firestorm engulfed Hiroshima, burning 4.4 square miles of the city, while Nagasaki, due to its hilly geography, did not experience the same level of fire destruction. Those who were out in the open or stuck were often burned alive. Beyond the fire, the blast generated hurricane-force winds that picked up sheets of metal and debris, flinging them across the streets, possibly hitting those seeking shelter. The bomb also created black rain, a toxic downpour filled with radioactive ash, debris, and even human remains. Many people would drink the rain out of desperation, but it only made them thirstier, as there were so much ash in the rain. The rain also left black streaks on the faces of the survivors, showing just how contaminated it was. Those who drank the contaminated water suffered burning pain in their stomachs. Many died before the rain had even fully passed through their systems. Later, governments would include the people who died of black rain into the total number of casualties for the Hiroshima and Nagasaki bombings. While the initial explosion claimed thousands of lives, radiation continued to kill long after the bombs fell. Survivors suffered from blood disorders, keloids, tumors, leukemia, and other cancers. Yet one small relief was that the radiation did not linger for decades. Since the bombs were detonated in the air, the radioactive material dispersed a lot quicker than if it exploded on the ground. However, the long-term consequences were still devastating. Medical care was scarce, water was contaminated, and food was nearly non-existent. Many survivors died from malnutrition and disease in the weeks and months following the bombings. The cramped and unsanitary conditions inside makeshift shelters created a breeding ground for the infection, and with little to no medical equipment, most victims went untreated. The social and psychological impact on the towns was immense. The bombing shattered families, children separated from their parents, and many were left orphaned and alone. The sheer trauma of the event left lifelong psychological scars on the survivors. Many of whom spent their lives advocating for peace so that no one else would suffer as they did. Today, organizations and treaties such as the Treaty on the Prohibition of Nuclear Weapons work to prevent future nuclear conflicts. This treaty bans the use, testing, and production of nuclear weapons, and as of today, 73 states have signed it. Though some nations still refuse to join, this is a great step in the right direction, but still, more needs to be done. The atomic bombs of Hiroshima and Nagasaki forever changed history. These weapons should never be used again as they cause irreversible destruction physically, emotionally, and socially. Nuclear war is inhumane and its consequences are too severe to justify. These attacks on the two cities serve as an example of what happened and why it should never happen again. That is why I made my project on it, because it needs to be talked about and studied for people to see all the horrors for years to come so it doesn't happen again. From the man who photographed that horrific day, here is his words. Those of us who experience all these hardships, we hope that such suffering will never be experienced again by our children and our grandchildren. Not only our children and grandchildren, but all future generations should not have to go through this tragedy. That is why I want young people to listen to our testimonies and to choose the right path, the path which leads to peace. Thank you.